This video is about my experience installing the Poison Spyder JK Bolt Together trail cage. The cage was shipped to my house very nicely packaged, and on the outside of the box you can see here my trail cage is for 2011 or greater, and my Jeep JK is a 2013 Sahara. When you open the box and take a look at the manual, you may find that the manual actually lists that the directions for a 07 to 2010 JK. I called the manufacturer Poison Spyder, and they told me that the manual just hasn't been updated. It will in fact work for my 2013 JK.
I'm connecting the A-arm here that I finally got installed to this upper member with a grab bar, and you can see that right there I'm going to have to grind down the pipe of the roll cage here because it's rubbing against my existing roll cage and scratching the paint. So gotta get to it. Okay, I ground it down right here, you can see, because it was hitting the existing roll cage. I ground it down quite a bit. Still not enough though, I have to ground it down some more because I'm having a hard time getting the A-pillar connected to the, grab bar assembly. Okay, I decided that since they were going in the Jeep really tough, I decided to attach the grab bar to the A-arm and then put them in that way. So when I did that, it all seemed to be going together pretty well, but there's a problem. Because that bolt right there, let me back up a little bit so you know what you're looking at. There's no play in that, like you can't really, very little play in that to go forward or backwards. And because of that, when the A-arm goes in here, you can see that the holes are not lining up anymore. So I understand we're working with very tight tolerances here, but it just doesn't fit. And I'm tired of making these holes bigger and bigger and bigger.
Okay, jumping ahead here guys, I did eventually get that installed, so I just wanted to show you that it does work, but I had to grind these holes bigger. So but it's going to show you a little bit more about what I went through to get that finally installed. Okay, back to the process. I discovered that the A-arms needed to have a notch taken out of them in order to fit properly in my 2013 JK Sahara. So I marked it with a marker, and here's the before and after results of taking that notch out in order to make things work. Just a lot of little things like this that I had to make adjustments for to get this Poison Spyder trail cage installed. Another issue that I ran into when putting the A-arms and connecting to the Jeep is these spacers right here have to go in. And what happens is, on the passenger side, I ran into this plastic glue or installation that was installed. So I had to heat up a screwdriver, bend it, and just run it up and down, scratching and scraping all of the glue or whatever that was in there to get it out. Then of course painting it. Here's what some of the material looked like that I had to take out of there. And then once I was able to get all the material out of there and get ready to put the spacer back in, I noticed I was running into the firewall, so then I had to take my grinder and cut into the firewall a little bit, otherwise the screws that they gave me to go into the A-arm, into the spacer, through the Jeep, into the spacer, thread into the A-arm, and I had to cut the firewall in order to make it all fit. So had to silicone all this when I did final fitment.
The problem that I have right now is that this whole A-arm needs to go back a little bit. And because, it's not, you can see my holes right there. I'm not going to make this massive hole any bigger. So I basically have to pull the AM bar back. And I attached to this just because I wanted to see, you know, I can take it off obviously with the, but it's scratching my paint right now because it's on, so I'll have to touch up that later. But I took a massive notch out of it. You can see it's not, in order to get it to line up with that factory connection. There it is right there. I have to lift up on it quite a bit. And when I do that, it no longer rubs. But that pulls the whole A-arm up in the air. So my bolts right there, I mean, I'm gonna need to use come-alongs and, you know, hydraulics to, like, I don't know, stretch this metal or something, but it's more than just tight. Okay, I was able to get these bolts in, and I unfastened it up there so they could get those in the A-arm. And one of my clips that was in here, it fell down. So I won't be able to put that screw in. So when I paint these and I try to do final fitment, I'll have to come up with another solution, because those clips that they give you, they don't line up, and then you start moving them around and they don't fit to begin with anyway. So yeah. But what I did up here is I basically got on my knees on my seat and I just lifted up. I was able to get that in. And now there should be a bolt right there. I can't see and I can't feel it. But I'm gonna try and get that in next. Okay. I ran into another problem, and I had a feeling I might with this thing that goes across the windshield. So it just I couldn't screw it in. And besides, the bar is resting right on that sensor right there. And I need to hit it and strike it on that end in order to move it in place, in order to try to put the screws in. So that means the whole roll cage needs to go up in the front so that I can not be resting on that sensor. To do that, I put shims under here and then tried to pick it up. But of course, the A-arm isn't going to go up because of these holes. And you can see I already have pretty big holes here to hold it in place. But now they're gonna get bigger because I've gotta go take out some material here so I can lift the AM up.
Okay guys, jumping ahead here. I just moved the daylight sensor to right here on the dashboard.
Okay, so I have this windshield bar going across. I'm really psyched I don't have to get rid of my tweeters. So in the other videos, they talked about how, you know, you gotta persuade it, you use ratchet straps and stuff like that. Well, let me just put a word of caution in there about doing that. If you're pounding this in to get this in, which I have not, you know, but I'm tempted to, you're gonna have to pound on something to get it out. So if it's not going in there nice and easy, I would reconsider pounding it or just forcing it in, because getting it out could be a lot harder. And getting those bolts to thread in there is, oh my God, it's just, even with it off the Jeep and just trying to thread it, getting it to line up is like really tough. I know another one of the videos, the guy talked about how you're gonna need a die set to, you know, thread these, especially after you have them painted. And I think that's true, but I can just tell you that, you know, there's something to be said for, you know, tight engineering so everything looks good, but there's also just something to be said for maybe it could have been done another way a little bit better, because this will be a tough process too, but I'm sure I'll get through it. At this point, I have the roll cage in. I was able to get most of these bolts. Before you put all this cage inside the Jeep, I suggest you line things up on the ground and screw them in, just to make sure that, to build your own confidence that they're actually going to go in, because if it's not lined up perfectly, basically won't go in. And I'm still questioning when I put it back together whether or not these are going to go in without me cross-threading them. But I did get most of them in. My tweeters are in the way from getting into this one, so I'm going to have to bend a wrench in order to get it in there and finish tightening it. That one did go in. The one on the other side did not go in. So I know you can't see that right in front of the tweeter, but at this point, I had to put in these bolts right here, which do not line up with the factory holes. You put a vise, not a vise, excuse me, clamps like this, and I put them up there, you know, and clamped it and made it really, had to pull on it quite a bit to get those holes. There is some stress, I would say, certainly on this whole system because it doesn't just fit on this particular 2013 Jeep Sahara. The next place, so the last place that I really need to bolt in, which should have been done in a prior step according to the directions, but I just, at this point I don't completely trust the directions, although I am using them as a guide. And that's basically this A-arm has to be bolted to the floor, but it's too far that way, so I have to pull it this way, and which I can do, but I am getting through it and it is going in despite having to make ridiculously large holes here for the A-arms and the clips for these bolts that are not sized correctly at all in the kit that they give you. But I will make do and I will make it work. Determination is working in my favor here. Plus, I still really love the roll cage. I love the way it's going to look. And despite the fitment issues, I'm still really happy with my decision. All right, I figured out that I would try ratcheting from there right over to this piece on the A-arm for the door strap, which I didn't want to put too much stress on because I didn't want it to bend. And I don't think I need to, but I am running into another issue, and that's I finally got, due to this piece right here, the spacer that they give you, it's hitting against it. And I can relieve a little bit of pressure in order to drill the holes. But I need to maybe release a little bit more because if I go any further that way, the hole's not gonna, in the A-arm's not gonna line up with the hole in the spacer, and that's because this thing's in the way. So I'm gonna have to take that piece out, I think, and just grind away at this edge and take some off of it. That way I have a little bit more play, because look what's happening on this end. The spacer that's in here, let's see if I can get that one out. Yeah, well, you can see it. So what's happening is that's running into the floorboard rib here, the supports. And so I can't line up the holes. So I'm gonna take a little bit of pressure off the ratchet system and then grind some on that edge and see if I can't get this to fit a little bit better. And then I'll drill my holes. Okay, I let a little pressure off of the strap, and so there's not quite nearly as much pressure anymore. You can see I wouldn't be able to do that if there was a lot of pressure. And I let it back as much as I could before, so just enough so that I could get that spacer underneath there, and you can see that it's now lining up, with that spacer if I push on it just a little bit, so you can see what I'm talking about right there. Over here, however, you can see that it's not lining up with the spacer. So I'm gonna go ahead and grind that down because I'm really happy where the A-arm is. And you can't move that A-arm too much, guys, because of the fitment with the plastic. And I've already taken a Dremel and cut, just along that edge. And up there, the fitment is really fantastic. I like the way it's fitting. You're gonna have to tinker with it if you decide to go with this roll cage. I'm getting ready to drill some holes in order to put those 4 bolts in. 1, 2, 3, 4. See them all right there. So I decided to take a look at underneath the Jeep to see what's going on. And I noticed in the other videos the other video that I watched, one of them didn't show this process at all, and the other one only showed 2 bolts going in. So I'm wondering if I'll get in all 4 or not, but I'm gonna give it a shot. Okay, I wanted to point out here that the directions talk about the use a bar clamp to make sure the bottom of the A-pillar is snug against the side footwell, pushed away from the center of the Jeep. Well, you're not going to make sure that's snug against the footwell. That would be a mistake, and I don't think there's any way you could possibly get the A-arm to go snug against the wall anyway. And then it says drill a hole location with a 1/2-inch bit. Got it. At each hole is drilled, temporarily insert is supplied. Okay, screw into the hole. So I started looking at this, and not that I don't trust the directions, but I don't trust the directions completely. So I decided to drill an exploratory hole right there, because there's no way you're going to get this snug against the wall, and you don't want to anyway because you've got this, and so it's pretty snug against there. And let's go take a look at that exploratory hole. And I need a flashlight to make my point. There we go. There's a flashlight. Okay. So here we are, and you can see that exploratory hole right there, right? But the problem is that this hole running, whatever this is called, is the hole is going to end up being actually, you're going to drill into this piece. So I'm going to have to move the A-arm. It can't go where it is now, because and the other hole will obviously be, let me turn my flashlight on. So my exploratory hole is there, and so you can see that it's going to run right into this when I make it bigger. So then the second hole is going to be inside here. And the other 2 holes, one's going to line up somewhere right along there, right where my bright light is. I'm going to drill all 4 holes exploratory to make sure I can get a wrench in there, because that is not spelt out clearly in the directions that it's going to be this crazy to get it lined up. And you definitely want to run those exploratory holes like I did right there, because getting the nut to the other side of the bolt that you're going to put down for those 4 mounts is, I think it's going to work, but the fitment just is tough, guys. Okay, I ended up having to wedge to push the A-arm in a little bit in order to avoid some significant problems underneath if I want to actually put a nut on the bolts that I'm drilling. So getting ready to drill this hole, and I can see that I'm a little off there. I'm gonna have to fix that. What I'm realizing now is that in order to drill straight down, the A-arm is going to be in the way. I mean, it's just, my drill is not going to be able to drill straight down because of the A-arm. I'm going to have to mark the holes where I want them to be, and I'll probably go a little bit bigger than a 1/2 inch, even though the directions call for 1/2 inch, just because based on what happened here and these massive holes that I had to drill in order to make the fitment work, I may go just a touch bigger than 1/2 inch. I'm gonna have to take the A-arm out again and everything all apart in order to drill those 4 holes. So I have to make sure it's absolutely perfect and things line up underneath so that I'm able to fasten 4 bolts. And I would love to push this tighter against the Jeep, but if I do that, there's just no way that's just not going to happen. And it will put a lot of stress that I ran into earlier. So again, the directions are a guide, but you're definitely going to have to work with the fitment too if you want to get this roll cage in. Okay, doing some more fitment, and what I'm finding is that hole right there, that exploratory hole I made,
That needs to move out a little bit. As we know, I already talked about that. The exterior bolt is going to come through right here. It's just going to be longer, and they provide bolts for that in the kit, I believe. The other two bolts are over here. It's going to come through right about there, right about to the left of that spot weld. And the fourth bolt is going to be very, very close to this mount that's used to hold the running board, so you can, you know, step into the Jeep. So I plan on putting those back on. I'll figure that out as I go, and we'll see what happens.
Okay, jumping ahead, time warp here. I got the trail cage powder coated and completely installed in the Jeep. So here's what the A-arm looked like when it was finally installed into the JK. Not really pushed hard against the left of the Jeep like the directions said, because you need room for wires. But you can see the bolts. I decided to mount everything on top of the carpet. It's just the way I decided to do it, and I put down new sound dampening material underneath the carpet. I cut the carpet so I could get access to the plugs real easily as well. And finally underneath here you can see the bolts coming through both the not the running board, but the infrastructure to support the body of the Jeep. And to the right of that, you can see where they came through on the floorboards. This is a trail cage, not a roll cage. It doesn't connect to the frame. It just connects to the floor of the Jeep and a little bit of the infrastructure. So I don't think you'd want to roll your Jeep with this trail cage and expect to be completely safe. It might be, I don't know, but it doesn't connect to the frame, so that's probably why they call it a trail cage. Okay, I took this picture because I wanted to remind myself and to anyone who watches this video that when you put this thing back together, you're going to need to rethread a lot of the holes in order to put the bolts in. And that isn't because they're covered with paint. They were all plugged before this trail cage was powder coated. It just, as another video hinted at on this trail cage, the tolerances are very tight, and in some cases, even when I took it out of the Jeep completely and just tried to assemble it on the floor, it just wouldn't go together. You know, the screws did not line up with the holes. So it could have been just a trail cage I received. I definitely don't think it was my skill set. It's pretty straightforward stuff here, folks. But you will need to rethread holes in order to get this thing together, either before or after you have it powder coated. So that's what this picture's for.
Okay, here's the final fitment of the trail cage. You can see that it really looks dynamite. I like to put the windshield down on my vehicles. Just really love it. You should try it. Because I put the windshield down a lot, I had to cut the windshield support brackets. So obviously the top's here, the bottom's there. I had to weld these on because the Poison Spyder trail cage replaces the original supports that go in here. These brackets fit on pretty well. I did have to drill holes because, again, fitment. So I had to make those a little bit bigger, unfortunately, but it does work. You got to struggle with it a bit. The windshield going up and down now is much simpler on this JK. So you can see it's much more obvious there where I cut them. Now this, you have to take the windshield wipers off too when you put the windshield down. This Wrangler is a little bit unique because what I did is I purchased a Land Rover front end, which is another project I was doing at the same time. And you can see that it fits on really nicely. I did have to, the Land Rover front end ends right here. I had to fabricate panels to fill in that gap, but it came out great. I used these aftermarket mirrors. Again, the fitment on the Poison Spyder down through here. You can see my bolts It just came out fantastic. Very, very happy with it. And love these grab bars. I did have to drill these holes bigger because these parts for the soft top would not fit. So I had to make some modifications there, which impacts how well the soft top fits as well. So I had to make some changes with that. Just put the windshield back down, and I'll get some pictures from the back. You can see that you know, this is a two-door JK, and just really happy with it. Even though I struggled with that, you know, for weeks to get that thing in, man, it just looks dynamite, and I would do it again. But your first time through it, you may end up struggling like I did. So thanks for watching, guys, and I hope if you're looking at buying this trail cage, you found this video informative. Good luck.